wanted to add that section in. So I'm adding in one more section. I swear to God, one more section. That's going to be it. And then I'm done. But anyway, swear to God, it's only one.
I was
Only
waiting
one.
for you to say I'm done, and I'm like,
Yep.
and there's the period. I don't know if that's really a period. I think that's a semicolon.
It might be. Which brings us nicely to what we're going to talk about
Yeah,
because
so we should do our intro. All right. So welcome to Pros Talking Prose with Troy Lambert and Stacey Smekofske, two editors who are absolutely a hot mess today. We have gotten together with the attitude of well, this is the best you're gonna get today. So we've got a topic though to talk about. We're going to talk about vanity publishers, and I'm going to kind of go vanity publishers / hybrid publishers because a lot of people will lump themselves into this hybrid publisher category, but I see them as vanity publishers. They're just rebranding themselves because vanity publishers got such a bad name in the old days. So I'm going to make sure that is, we're going to use those words synonymously in this tutorial, I guess you could call this. I'm going to also apologize. I got Invisalign this last week and my teeth are so sore and my lips keep catching on the lips. So I might be doing a lot of this stuff. Yeah. So I'm a big follower of the behavior panel. I love those guys. Those four little kooky old men, honestly, they just make my heart just leap for joy. And one of the things they talk about is behavior, like our behaviors and how to read those behaviors for certain, what we might be thinking or feeling. And I'm like thinking, yeah, they're she's got an adapter going or something, no, it's really not. It's just I'm in pain. So anyway, that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. I think first, I think what I'll do is let me start with the experience that I had last week or the week before, Troy, that I called you about. This was absolutely mind-boggling to me, and I'm sure it's not a unique experience. I'm sure there's lots of people out there that have been through this, but it was the first time I had encountered it to such a large degree. So I had a potential client call me, and she wanted to ask some questions regarding the editing of her manuscript. She thought that she wanted to put some professional eyes on it, and the publisher that she had, those are the words she used, the publisher that she had signed with, she didn't feel like they were doing an adequate job, or that they would do an adequate job on the editing side of that. She said it wasn't going to be something that they were going to be covering, and she didn't feel like she was going to trust what they had to say about it. So I asked her further, why would you feel that way? What's going on? And she proceeded to tell me that she had hired a publishing company, and I think I'm just going to keep that name out of this because I don't want to tarnish anybody, but she'd hired a publishing company. And when you hire a publishing company, I'm going to say this is the number one red flag, that you're not with a traditional publisher, you're with a hybrid publisher, is if you hire them. If you pay any money, you are not in a traditional publisher's house. You are not in that avenue of publishing. You are in a hybrid publishing or a vanity publishing avenue. So number one, big indicator. So she had hired this publishing company, and she had paid upwards of $23,000. Let me swallow. To them to publish her book. I asked her what they were doing for her, because she'd already admitted that they weren't going to edit her book. She said that they were going to put her in Barnes and Noble, like 10 books in every Barnes and Noble across the country. You and I both discussed we've never heard of a deal like that before. But there were a couple other things. They charged her like $7,000 to purchase her ISBNs. You can all get your ISBNs on Bowker right now for 250 for 10 of them. So that's ridiculous. And then she also was being charged like $5,000 or something ridiculous to get her ASIN. And what you need to understand about ASIN, sorry about that. What you need to understand about ASINs is that they're free and that they're actually just an internal cataloging number. They have nothing to do with you. They're just an internal cataloging number for the store that you are publishing your book with, or that it's being listed in. So that's ridiculous. So it was pretty much at that point, I knew it was a scam, charlatans. You could come up with whatever. Yeah, we'll come up with all the thesaurus words. But anyway, I brought it up to Troy because I thought, am I just that inexperienced that I don't understand, or like where is this? And so Troy and I wanted to talk to you today about these hybrid publishers. So Troy, what do you want to share about this, what I've said so far?
Well, so what I'll tell you is publishing in general, and this is the way I explain it to a lot of people, is it's a pay now or pay later game.
Mhm.
The pay now game is for an indie publisher or self-publishing. We've talked about how those two terms differ. And I consider myself to be an indie publisher. I do it professionally. So I hire a professional editor, hire professional cover designers, professional formatting. All of those things are things that I do, and I pay for all of them up front.
Right.
And then on the back end of that, I keep all of my royalties. Okay. If I go with a traditional publishing deal, they pay for many of those things up front. Now, they also take some of the control away from me regarding
Mhm.
those things, but they also take on some of the responsibility. I don't have to go find a cover designer. I don't have to go find an editor or a formatter. They do it for me, and then they get paid later on the back end because they take a percentage of my royalties. Now, what percentage that is and what that looks like depends on whether this is a good traditional deal or not. Okay, so that's a whole other discussion.
Right.
When it comes to vanity and hybrid publishing, the way I distinguish those two things, hybrid publishers are honestly providing author services.
Right.
You are paying them up front to do things for you, and what they are essentially doing is acting as your project manager.
Right.
They
That
are
makes sense.
going and sourcing a cover designer and sourcing an editor and sourcing all these things and putting your book together for you so that you don't have to. Now, there are reasonable costs that are associated with that type of service. What you encountered is what I call a vanity publisher, and the reason is there are extremely high costs associated with that type of publisher that are, first of all, they're exorbitant for what
Mhm.
they're offering. Second of all, there are certain things they are not offering that client that should be a part of a package that's costing $23,000.
Right.
They are promising her things that I don't believe that they can deliver. Now, if they can, I would love to hear about that. I'd love to hear somebody tell me about that and how that type of a program works. But I've never heard of a traditional publisher that had that kind of a deal with Barnes and Noble, where they could
Right.
guarantee an author that they would get 10 copies of their book in Barnes and Noble all across the country. So with a hybrid publisher, you are paying now, but the kicker is you should not also be paying later. So they should not also be taking a percentage of your royalties. You pay them now to provide you with services. When those services are done, they might charge you a small, like, account management fee. They're going to manage your Amazon royalties. They're going to collect all those things for you and ship them to you. They're going to make sure that all your stuff stays current, yada, yada. So you don't have to take responsibility for that. That's fine. But if that is a high percentage of your royalties, they're making you pay now and pay later. What's happening with a lot of vanity publishers is you're getting what the rates of royalties that you would get from a traditional publisher who has done all of that for you and paid all of it for you. You're getting the same royalty rates from a vanity publisher as you're getting from a traditional publisher, but they didn't pay for any of those things up front. You did. And so
Right.
you're paying twice. You're paying now and you're paying later. And that's the big problem of authors understanding this industry, first of all, and understanding what publishers can provide and what they can't provide for you and what that looks like. And it's really, really important because the issue is new authors especially are gullible and they want to be published really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel a certain validity when that publishing is attached to a publisher. There are people that I know that are straight up right now, today, as we speak, getting ripped off of their royalties by publishers that are vanity publishers that have put their book out there in the world. They are selling it. Of course, they're selling it because they're keeping a huge percentage of that author's royalties, and that author is getting pennies on the dollar compared to what they should be getting from their publishing royalties. This is there. These are, and like you said, the first red flag to watch for is hiring a publisher. If you're hiring a publisher company, they should provide you with a list of very detailed outline services, and that's what you're paying for. That is it. End of story.
And I can tell you, just because there's options out there. If you're looking for a publisher because you don't understand the industry and you really want somebody to coach you through it, and there are other options. You don't always have to go to a publisher or a hybrid publisher for that. There are publishing coaches out there like myself and you, Troy, that will walk you through the process as much as possible. And my course does a good job of that too, Imprint Academy. So there are things out there that will walk you through that process. So you don't necessarily have to do all the legwork. You can hire a team member that can help you. Now, that being said, a hybrid publisher works like that, like you said, by your definition of that. And I love that idea of that. But at the same time, it's like you said, you really want to be careful that you're not getting these marked up prices. Like I said, the one lady that contacted me, she said she's paying $7,000 for her ISBNs. There's only one company in the entire US that sells and issues those numbers, and that's Bowker, Bowker. Go look them up, Bowker.com.
Yeah.
It's the only place you can get them. If you get them from another website, they're going to get them from Bowker, and now they've got their name and they're tied to it, and therefore it's no better than you getting the free ISBN. You can't do anything with that without that name as the publisher name, and that takes that control out of you, that ownership out of your name as the author. So now you're not creating your own imprint with that. You're still under somebody else's name.
Yep.
So be very, very careful. If you want to indie publish yourself or self-publish, go to Bowker and get your own ISBNs. You're going to get a good deal, 10 of them for $260. And they don't expire. It's like real estate in the market. Just keep it,
Yeah.
Just keep writing books. Like Troy says, write more.
And I'll give you an example too. Is like, so there's a guy that I coached through the whole publishing process, right? He formed his own LLC. He has his own company.
Right.
And the way we handled his ISBNs was I created him an account at Bowker and I said, go and pay for your ISBNs. Now, if you are going with a vanity publisher and they say, we will get your ISBNs for you and it's going to cost you 500 and some bucks or whatever, just say, hey, no thanks, man. In this particular case, I'm going to go get my own ISBN. So you can just scratch that off of your services that you provide. I'm going to go get my own ISBNs in my own name, and I will provide you with them to put them on the books that you're going to produce for me. But that would be a much better way to go because in my mind, my client deserves, if they want to control their own ISBNs and their own destiny, they deserve to have that right and that ability. If for
Yeah,
some reason they want me to put them under some imprint that I own, then that is an entirely different story, but I'm still not going to overcharge them for them, because there's really, like, what is the point? How much effort did I put into going and getting those ISBNs?
right,
It took me a couple clicks of a mouse and filling out a form. Now,
right,
I mean, I could charge them for that time conceivably, right? That's fair. I want to get paid for my time. Okay, that's fair. But if I'm charging them any more than $50 for filling out a form and clicking a button, I'm ripping them off. I'm not doing
right,
that author any favors. And there are enough expenses that are associated with producing a book and putting it into the world that you don't need to be overcharged for some of them, because it's going to be that equally that much more difficult to recoup your money, essentially.
right,
So, and I mean, all this comes back to, in large part, choosing your path to publication. And that comes back
right,
to your course about choosing your path to publication,
right,
because this it's a very important choice, because there are huge differences in how you get paid, how much you get paid, and how quickly your ROI is paid off.
right. Right. And you have to decide as an author early. I mean, and I say this all the time, even before your manuscript is written, because that could very well determine how you write that manuscript.
Hmm.
So decide how you want this book to be out there. How do you where do you see yourself in 5 years? How much control do you insist on keeping? How much are you willing to give up? Like you said, when you get a hybrid
Yeah.
publisher or a vanity publisher, how much are you willing to relinquish, or traditionally published especially? How much control are you willing to give up? And so ask yourself those questions and be honest with yourself, because yeah, you can't let that lovely pat on the back and that approval from a company, you know, whoever that company may be, to tell you, yes, you have a hit here. Um, you can't let that be the overriding reason that you're going with that company. You have to make sure that it's going to be best for you in the long run. And you and I have said it multiple times. This is a long game. And so
Hmm.
play the long game if you intend to be an author as for a lifetime. There's a long game involved here. And so you need to think about what that means.
Oh, and let me, while we're talking about this, because there's just been a huge controversy among a number of authors that have been traditionally published,
Oh
is,
yeah,
so let me just put it, please, for the love of all that is holy, if you sign a contract, first of all, read it. Second of all, have an attorney look it over. Now, when
please.
I started in the publishing industry a long, long time ago, we're not even going to talk about how long ago that was, but there were these things called reversion rights. Okay.
Right.
And usually, if you signed a contract, now, if you signed it in the UK, usually it was 7 to 9 years. If you sign it
Okay.
in the US, it was usually 4 to 7 years. And
Okay.
then you can ask the publisher for your rights back.
Right.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
most people have probably heard of HarperCollins Publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And HarperCollins has several other imprints, including HarperCollins Christian Publishing, all these other things. Now, there is a persona at HarperCollins that I am fairly convinced is not a real person. And that person is Helen Moore. And
Oh,
authors now are referring to this as being Helen Moored. Okay. And what happens is
whoa.
you write HarperCollins and you say, I would like the rights back to my book that has been out of print for a long time. And they say,
Right.
no, you can't have it. And they refer you to this editor in chief named Helen Moore, kind of
Okay.
regardless of what imprint you are a part of. Now, the reason I bring this up is there are people that I've talked to that are having this struggle with books that they placed with HarperCollins in 1992,
Whoa.
and they are being refused to have their rights back. So HarperCollins still has it up on their website. They claim it is still in print. And imprint used to mean, back in those
You
days,
were in
you had
print.
a certain number of copies sitting in a warehouse somewhere.
Right, right.
And HarperCollins has basically said, now we say that print on demand and having it available as an ebook count as it being in print. So they will
Oh
not remove
dear.
it. They will not remove it from sales. Authors are not receiving any more royalties for years, not receiving any royalties. And they cannot get them, even with the help of attorneys, to revert their rights to them. Basically, one author they told HarperCollins, this Helen Moore persona, essentially said, she can sue us. It's going to cost her more than it's worth to sue us. So, lest you think that Vanity and hybrid publishers are the only ones where there are issues, and I have other stories as well, but this is just one that's like, this is the Writers Guild is getting involved, attorneys are getting involved. There's talk of class action suits against this huge conglomerate of company that many authors would say, man, if I could get a contract with HarperCollins, wouldn't that be great? Honestly,
No.
no, it wouldn't. No,
You
it
know,
wouldn't. It may
here's the
very well keep you tied up for years. One
for
person's written a
years.
second book in a series, and they don't want the second book, but they have the first right of refusal. They've had the first book for like 15 years, and they will not give her the rights to the first book back and will not release their rights of refusal to book number 2. So she has a book that is in a series. She can't get book number 1. She can't publish book number 2. So she just has to move on and do something else because that series itself is dead because of HarperCollins' legal department. Anyway, it's a side note, but it's one of those things that I've seen people also sign contracts with Vanity publishers with no rights reversion clauses, so you don't get your rights back to your book in perpetuity.
That
So they
is
can keep your stuff forever.
tragic. That's
It is forever.
tragic.
So, and under U.S. copyright laws, another aside, and I'm not an attorney, so this is not legal advice for you. Just
Yeah. No, yeah.
little caveat.
Little
I'm not an
disclaimer
attorney.
here. Yeah.
Little disclaimer down at the bottom, but I do know U.S. copyright law is that after 25 years from a publisher, you can get your rights back, whether they want to give them to you or not.
Right.
So that means those books that were published in 1992, in about 2 to 3 years, when these authors who were 30 at the time are now in their 50s, they can get their rights back to their books, whether
Finally.
HarperCollins wants to release them or not. But 25
But
years is a long time to wait. Some of you are going to be passing down that information to your heirs so they can get your books back from whatever publisher you place them with. So
right.
don't do it. No matter what contract, Vanity, Hybrid, whatever publisher you're going with, sign a contract and make sure that that contract has your interests in heart. Pay $100 for an attorney to look it over. Please, if you need to borrow $100, for borrow $100 from somebody, put it on a credit card, whatever you got to do. But that can affect your life for years to come
Right.
because you put it with the wrong publisher at the wrong time with the wrong contract. Anyway, end of Troy
I did
rant.
not I didn't
But
know that was going on. That's insane.
it's something that's rumbling underneath. It hasn't bubbled big into the public realm yet, but it's about to.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Well,
so not a
and
lot of
this
people know about it yet, but it's happening.
the thing that's terrible and tragic about this whole thing too is also that it's not just this. Traditional publishers are running into a lot of issues right now. There is kind of an exodus, so to speak, of traditional authors that are no longer wanting to trad publish. They are choosing and opting to create their own imprints, and they've already reached that level of notoriety that they can sell their own books and make, like you said, more money on the back end after the book is published and go ahead and invest that little bit up front to go ahead and get their book out there, because they've reached that level or that platform. Their author platform's large enough that they don't need a traditional publisher anymore. They can do it themselves. So really, there does seem to be a little bit of an exodus happening of trad authors leaving the industry because they want to make more on their royalties than they can in that side of the on that
Hmm.
trail of publishing. So like I said, it's a long game. It does feel great. I mean, you get that acceptance letter from somebody like Random or, Macmillan, and you're gonna feel like $1,000,000. Hot damn, somebody loves me. Somebody likes me, Mikey. But it doesn't, it may not be the best thing for you. So like Troy said, and I say this to everybody that I talk to, if you want to go trad, that's great. Let's do it. But let's make sure that you have a lawyer look at that contract, make sure that you're getting the best deal. Because it does feel great to have somebody say, I'm in your corner, and they help you and work toward, those sales numbers. But um, there are other ways to get to those sales numbers as well. And we can talk about that, of course, in some other classes that we would when we can go into more detail about that. But with particularly with this, I just wanted to put out the warning signs, like really just be careful. Know exactly, know thy company, know what you're getting into. So know the company that you're getting involved with. Don't be afraid to investigate. Don't be afraid to go get referrals. Don't be afraid to ask for more than one opinion. Don't be afraid to shop around. This is the same thing with editors. A good editor is never going to say, well, don't shop around, I'm your one-stop shop. They're gonna say, go shop around, and they're not going to
Yeah.
be intimidated by you going, I'm going to call some other people. Go ahead. Because it really is important that you pick the person, pick the group, pick the team, pick the company that's going to best suit you, because this is your author business. This isn't
Yeah.
my author business. It's not Troy's author business. It's yours. It's not Random's. It's not Macmillan's. Even if they take you on, it's still your author business. Just look at
Yeah.
Martin. Just look at Martin and what he did with Game of Thrones.
Well, hey, and I mean, so here's some actionable steps. Okay. First of all,
Okay.
Google the company's name.
Right.
Google the company name. Okay. Look for reviews of that company online, including sites like Predators and Editors, and other sites like
Yeah.
that, that basically look at companies like this and say, this is a good deal, this is not a good deal. The
Right.
other thing is, look at their authors. Okay. They're often on
Mm.
their website, they'll have a list of authors. One of the things that I've done before is gone to their website, taken that author name, go search it on Amazon, and see how their book is doing.
Look at the copyright page of that book, because
Hmm.
I've also noticed that if they can list an author and say it's their author, but if you go on to that copyright page, that publisher is nowhere listed on that copyright page.
Yeah. And in
So
that case, they're
it's a swindle.
probably they're probably an author services company who has provided services to that author, but the author is actually published under their own imprint or their own name.
Right.
And that's another red flag to look at, but also look at just how that author's book is doing. Like, what are the reviews on that author's book? What is their
Right.
current ranking in Amazon? How are they selling? How old is that book?
Right.
Right? And just start looking at some different things to see, like, what kind of quality job is this company doing? If they say that they edit for you, and look at the book cover, and if the book cover looks like really bad Photoshop, well, that may not be the publisher that you want to go with. I mean,
Right.
there's so many different factors to look at, but don't be afraid to research those things before you sign on with a company. Go and find out and talk to another author. Find that author's email address and talk to the author that went with that company and say, "Hey, what was your experience like? Would you recommend
Right.
this to another author?" If the answer is no, or if the answer was, I mean, I had somebody offer me not long ago a $15,000 course that they were like, we guarantee at the end of this course, you'll be a best-selling author. And I talked to my one
Wow.
accountant person and I was telling him about it and I was joking about it. He goes, yeah, I tell you what you'll get out of that course. He says, your life will be forever changed because you'll be $15,000 poorer.
$15,000 broke. Mm-hmm.
right?
For
So
sure.
don't, if those authors are saying, just ask them point blank, did you make your money back? Did you
Anytime
get the return on your
somebody
investment?
says, that's a major red flag for me. Anytime somebody says guarantee, and anytime. The only thing I can ever guarantee is that my author is going to bleed and cry and make it to the end and feel accomplished. That's the only thing that I can promise, is that if they get through it, they're going to feel like they accomplished something. But that's the only guarantee I can give. The rest of it is all just, oh,
Yeah,
it has to do with that magic 8 ball. It really
yeah.
does.
It really
Um,
does. A brief, really brief aside is that, like, I've been doing a lot of like this career work and personal work of going, okay, where am I going with my career? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Stuff like
right,
that. And two authors and I were sitting and we were talking about it, and it was just this huge moment for both of us, or for just the whole group, when we suddenly said, "Do you realize how much of our careers are out of our control?
right,
Like pretty much all of it."
right,
So if you as an author, if nobody can guarantee that I will continue to sell books when I've been doing it for all this time, nobody can guarantee me that. I
right,
can't guarantee me that.
right,
I have to just show up and do the work. So
right.
those guarantees, super red flag, because we can't even guarantee ourselves when we're experienced that this job, what we're doing, is going to look the same a year from now. I can't. In fact, I can almost guarantee you that it will look
It
different.
will. It will look different.
That
That's what
it'll
I was
look
gonna
different.
say.
I
It'll
mean,
look
that's the only
different.
guarantee. The only I guarantee you about the publishing industry is it's going to change.
It's gonna
And what,
change.
but what that change looks like, I have no idea. And so you're going to have to, as an author, determine how to navigate that for yourself. So anybody that says they guarantee you anything about something like that, unless they're going to personally go out and buy hundreds of copies of your book just to
Just
make
say
it a
goodbye.
bestseller,
Just say
just run
goodbye.
away. Say goodbye,
Run
run
away.
away. It's
Thanks
over.
for your help. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was gonna also go back just a second. When you were saying that, talk to the other authors. Um, I do basic formatting for novels, and you know what I use, and I love it. But it's easy for me as an editor when I've edited something, and just to, because I know where the text messages are, and the dialogue, and I know where things, so I can easily format that. But anyway, what's really awesome is that I had somebody checking me out once, and he wanted to see the covers and the interiors of books that I'd done. So I had to, I was giving him that information and showing him, and gave him all the ASIN so he could find them on Amazon and everything. And he contacted several of my authors. And of course there's this I don't control this. These are people I worked with. Sometimes a couple of them were years ago. And I don't know what they're gonna say, but and I didn't even warn them, hey, this guy's gonna look you up and call you. But it was so refreshing to know that after that discovery period that he took to do some research on my work, he came back and hired me. And it's one of those things that it didn't hurt my feelings that he did that. It shook my confidence a little bit, because of course we all kind of go into this little, oh my gosh, am I good enough? Did I do good enough? But or did they like me, but it is very much one of those things that you should do. You should always do your due diligence, always go out there and do your research, and never under any circumstances put that on somebody else. Always take that responsibility on yourself.
Yep.
So that's what I would say is another actionable item, is Google and then do your research. Because
Absolutely.
absolutely need to you absolutely need to be a little bit of an excavator here. Think Indiana Jones, go looking. Um,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
might find some skeletons.
Well, you may, and the other thing is, you may just find out that that's not the person or not the company for you.
Right.
Because the other aspect of this whole hybrid and vanity publishing is not everybody can do every genre. If they tell you they can do every single genre out there, the likelihood is they can't. They have
Right.
specialties. Every editor and um, every editor has things they do and don't do. Every publisher has things they do and don't do well. And so make sure that they're doing things that are within your genre and or nonfiction within your field
Wow.
because it's
Hmm.
important. Make sure that they're doing those things well
Right.
because it matters long term to your career and your author path. This is
Right.
you. This is your life, your path. This is what you do. I want to do this for the rest of my life. There's only one way for me to do that, and that is for me to be a proactive part of my career constantly and to be constantly working on improving and getting better at what I'm doing and
Right.
understanding the industry around me so that I don't make mistakes. It's the same for anybody that is listening out there is this is your responsibility, whether you go the vanity publisher, whether you go with a hybrid, whatever your choices are, traditional, do it yourself, whatever your choices are, it's your responsibility to make those choices and you're going to reap the consequences of those afterwards. So you should be super hyper vigilant at the beginning of that process to understand what it is exactly you're getting into.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got two actionable items then. We've got Google and we've got do investigations, which means more than just Googling. You like do
And
some
yep,
do some due diligence. And then what would we say the third one is, do you think?
my third one would be to ask questions. Uh,
Okay.
the primary thing is so even when you approach an editor, like I just had a conversation with a guy this morning about another ghostwriting project, right? And in part,
Cool.
he was interviewing me and
Hmm.
I was interviewing him. If I'm going to do this project for him, we are going to spend hours together. If you are going to be with a publisher for several years, you're going to be spending lots of time with them,
Hmm.
with their staff. You need to know as much about them as possible and make sure that it's also a cultural fit for you because some of them will act like it's your privilege that they are reaching down and bringing your manuscript up into their fold, and you're just a lowly author and you don't matter. And that's not the way you should feel. Okay.
No.
Think about how things,
Mm.
because one of the things about your author career is think about how things make you feel. Like if you
Right.
accomplished that and got that traditional publishing contract, how do you feel about that? If you got that contract from that vanity or hybrid publisher, how do you feel about that? How does shelling out that money feel to you? If it feels okay to you, go ahead. But if it
Right.
doesn't feel okay, check with yourself and find out why it doesn't feel right. And a part of that is interviewing that company and understanding what is it exactly that you do for authors? What do you not do for authors? What am I paying for? This line item right here, I want to know what that means. When it says marketing, I don't want to see a line item that says marketing. I
Oh,
want to see a
right.
line item that has 16 items underneath it that are actionable items that I can check off a list. If they tell me they can put my book, 10 copies of my book in every Barnes and Noble in the country, I want to see it, frankly. I want to see
Right.
it. I want to walk into any Barnes and Noble anywhere, walk to the shelf under my name, under my genre, and see 10 copies of my book. I'm not going to take their word for it. So ask them questions. How are you going to do that? How does that program work? How do the returns on that program work? If they don't sell those books,
Right.
can they send them back? If they do send them back, do I get charged for those books? How does that work? Dive in depth. If you don't know what questions to ask, find somebody who does know what
Right.
questions to ask and have them give you a list or be on the call with the publisher with you or something before you sign that dotted line. Before you sign a dotted line and send a check, know what you're getting in exchange for that money.
Right.
So ask
Exactly.
questions. Ask every
Perfect.
question you can think of. Anyway,
Perfect. Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, that Barnes and Noble deal, for sure, you brought that back up, but I mean, the returns on that would be a huge issue because
potentially,
um there could be hundreds of books, even thousands of books being returned, and who's gonna pay for that? That's a lot.
yeah.
So yeah. just crazy. I almost feel like the contract thing should be reiterated. Like it's
Hmm.
definitely like the legal side. So maybe the fourth one should be, get that contract checked out.
Yeah,
And
get legal counsel. Get that
legal
contract
counsel.
checked out. Um,
And a good
yeah,
copyright lawyer might be a good one, but also just maybe just an IP lawyer.
contract and a
Yeah,
contract.
a contract
Anybody who
lawyer would be
deals with
good.
contracts all the time
Yeah,
because they want to the publisher is going to write the contract in such a way that the primary benefit of the contract is to them, and
right.
often they have a really big legal department with all kinds of lawyers in it
Lots of
and that
money.
are well paid, right, because there's a
Uh-huh.
lot of money being thrown around there. So, and especially when you're talking about these big dollar vanity publishers that are taking a huge amount of money from you for services, right? So they've got a big legal department. So you need to have your own legal department, and that means at least having a contract attorney look over the contract. And usually they'll do that for a small fee. It's an hour. It's maybe
Yeah.
150 bucks, something like that. Even if it's in the 200, 250 range, when you're talking about shelling out $25,000 to a vanity publisher, or we had somebody that came to our conference this year that the a vanity publisher contacted them afterwards and said they would charge them only $85,000 to produce a movie script and shop it around for them to studios. Only $85,000. It was a bargain. But I mean, before I'm going to sign anything like that, man, $250 to have an attorney look it over is way better than shelling out an entire, half of a house, well, a quarter of a house now, but anyway, to pay for someone to create a script for me, right? So
No kidding.
I mean, these are just, and for every aspect of publishing, I'll just say it across the board, if you sign a contract of any kind, have an attorney look it over. Make sure
Right.
that it's in your interest and in theirs. They're going to protect their interests. Be sure that you're protecting yours. Have that contract looked over. If it's a bad contract and the contract lawyer says it's a bad contract, do not sign it, regardless of how your vanity and your ego may be tempted to do so. Drop it and walk away. One of the most powerful words you can use in the publishing industry is no, and you need to learn to say it. Um, I mean,
Hmm.
speaking from experience, lots of it painful experience. It's not late enough for me to drink and tell you about those experiences, but I mean, you need to say no. You need to be able to say no. And so it is
Right.
perfectly okay. Maybe that's the fifth little piece of advice is don't be afraid to say no. You
Okay. That
will you will bring your book to publication one way or another. There are tons of paths to publication. A vanity publisher and a hybrid publisher are not the only answer. And the company pitching you right now is not the only company out there, even if you choose to go that route. So do not be afraid to say no, or do not be afraid to say, I'll get back to you once I have all this checked out. Do not rush decisions like that. This is a decision that's going to affect your life for a really long time.
right. So just I guess in conclusion, we'll just wrap this up with the idea of just making sure that you know the paths of publishing and understand where you want to end up and and do research on that. Like Troy mentioned, I do have a little course. It's just a mini micro course on choosing your path to publication and deciding which one's best for you. And it's called Bookmark. And you can find that on my website at editsbystacey.com. But there are loads of other ways that you can do that research. There's a lot of people out there that have a lot of opinions. Check the dates on those opinions, because like Troy said, the industry changes on a dime all the time. So just make sure you're looking at the most recent information. But that being said, also just take the interest in yourself, invest the time and the effort into what you're doing. It's not a little thing to write a book. It's not it's not just, if it was simple, everybody would do it. Everybody would be an author because we all talk about it. We all say, oh, I have this book idea, or I would love to write this book. But I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, and then what small percentage of those people actually follow through and write that book. And it's because it's not easy. It's because it's not an easy thing to do. And so to be able to take your book and write this amazing manuscript and then take the effort and the time to polish that, which can take months to years, and then to turn around and then throw that all into a bad deal, where you are locked up for 25 years sometimes, with your rights, like that to me it's almost as tragic as losing your life, because you've just given all this creativity and all this part of you for nothing. And it's just absolutely devastating. So don't let that happen to you. Don't let that happen to what you're creating and what you can share and what you can do to improve our human experience by sharing that amazing story. So just take some time and take a pause and do what you need to do to make things happen. But like Troy said, don't be afraid to say no, and don't be afraid to wait and figure things out and ask for help. Troy, what's your final bit of
For
advice on
sure.
this?
That's my final piece of advice is yes, there are times to say yes to opportunity, but be sure it's an opportunity, not a distraction and not a bad deal. And don't be afraid to ask for help. We as
Mhm.
writers are a community, and it doesn't matter how experienced we
Right.
are or how inexperienced you are, you're a part of the club. So ask questions. We're here for you and we want you to succeed.
Right. Exactly. We're not competition. We're friends.
Oh,
Because every individual story is unique, and every one of us is unique, and we don't have to compete against each other. We can actually help each other and still succeed. And it's amazing. There's enough for everybody. So thank you, Troy. Again, you can visit Troy on his website, troylambertwrites.com, right? Am I saying that right?
correct.
And then you can find me at editsbystacey.com. Again, I'm going to plug my course. Imprint Academy is for sale on that website. That will actually walk you through the indie publishing process and actually show you the IBPA standards and how to meet those standards. And I also have bookmark on there, which is that finding your publishing course, finding your publishing path. Troy, you have an up and coming. Can you tell everybody what you're working on? Because I'm really excited about this one.
So I actually have an up and coming course. It's called SEO for Authors. And basically it's on the principle that there's two things that you as an author own that are yours, and that's your website and your email list. And that's all. You don't own social media. You don't own all those followers you have on TikTok. Although congratulations on the peanut butter dance or whatever it is you're doing over there. But but you don't own those things. You own your website, you own your email list. And there's an increasing trend of writers that are going to selling books direct on their websites. And if you're going to do that, SEO is really, really important. And I've been doing SEO for a really long time. So I
You
have a
have.
course that's coming out, and it basically tells you how to do SEO as an author for your website and how to
So
make your
exciting.
website actually work for you and be a better part of your overall marketing plan. So that'll be out actually in a few weeks. So
That
and
I'm so excited about this. And
there's a
they're going to
book
be
that
able to
goes
find
with
that.
it. It's awesome. Yeah, they'll find it on my
I'm
website.
okay,
Um,
cool.
yeah, everywhere. You can find it everywhere. You just Google me
So
and you'll
sign
find
up
it.
for Troy's community on his website so that you'll know when that comes out, when that's released, because that'll be really an amazing day. I think I'm gonna celebrate that day. That's gonna be a good day. So anyway, we'll get another video out to you guys as soon as we can, and we'll wish you the best as you continue to write. And thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
See you next time.